Hello, Kendra, and welcome to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi. Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here.
I will say I'm very excited because you are my first pro golfer. I can't say that I've ever met one, let alone spoken to one. So I'm very excited to get into that a little bit, but I'm even more excited to discuss your company that you created after struggling with the mom guilt and caregiver guilt that we all feel when we are trying to help children to eat just a little healthier, and they can just be the pickiest sometimes. And you created Hidden Foods Co., which is just helping you to create these delicious meals that aren't going to sacrifice in nutrients or flavor for children, gets them eating, gets you feeling like you did your job, and you can feel a little less guilty. And gosh, I really do think that Hidden Foods Co. is so needed and is absolutely going to be such a blessing to so many families across the US that really struggle with a picky eater. So thank you so much, Kendra, for coming on and for creating Hidden Foods Co.
Well, thank you. That was such a great intro, and I am very appreciative and excited that you're as excited about it too. I mean, I think as we were talking just briefly, having a picky eater is quite a challenge. And as a mom, I think one of the reasons I created this was to kind of help other moms go, hey, we got you. And it's hard to be out there with that guilt of my child should be eating. This child's eating fine. In fact, I have a great eater, and then I've got the pickier one. And it's just making sure that they've got all the nutrients that they need. And it's just, yeah, there's a guilt to it. So hoping we can create a solution.
Man, and I think you really have. And I would love to maybe just jump right into the nitty gritty. When preparing for a conversation, I was just going through your product lineup, and it really does seem as if you picked all of the best staples that a picky eater may entertain if they're feeling like they want to take a risk, like pasta sauce or a pancake. And I wonder, did that go into the thinking of, okay, what are going to be the easiest things we can get into their mouth first in vessel form? And then what do we put into the vessel?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple different directions that we came from with that. One being, first of all, I'm Italian. And so in our family, we make our own sauce and our own pasta and that type of thing. But my son always had his favorites that he would go to. And then on top of that, I would be really busy working. So we started to get pasta sauce from a jar, which doesn't sound bad. I mean, pasta sauce is great. There's a lot of pasta sauce on the shelves, but I just had that guilt of what am I giving them? And look at the sugar that's in that. And I don't cook with that. And I should be able to produce pasta sauce on the regular that they could eat. And whether that's, we freeze it or something. And so I went into that a little bit more of the bulk side. I also thought, well, maybe I could throw some vegetables in it and him not know. And so as we're starting to do that and the kids are like, yeah, this is really good. And I'm thinking, wow, they have no idea what I just shoved in that. And then I would keep going. And then every once in a while it would get to a point where they were like, this tastes funny. I'm like, okay, I went too far. As I had to like find that balance, I was like, okay, I think I've got it. And then other families, would tell me, oh yeah, my son doesn't eat that. I said, well, what if you want some of my sauce? Right. And so it kind of grew that way. And then same with the pancake mix, right? You do have the things that your kids love and they're regular about it. And it was, pancakes every morning or bread. We eat like panettone at Christmas time, those types of things. And my younger son, who is the picky eater, with that, he also started to have like some bowel problems because I think picky eaters, they just get to the point where they're like, all I want is pasta, all I want is white bread, and loading up. And I had gone to the doctor and she had said, how about we reduce the bread intake and we try stool softeners and these types of things. And so as a mom, you're like, okay, whatever the doctor says I'm doing. And then I started to realize at the same time I was making a lot of the sauce because we were starting to go into production and I was having to send it out to different manufacturers to see who could replicate it. So we had all this sauce and, I was making sure that the kids were getting rid of it because they couldn't store it everywhere. And with that, like all of his issues started to go away. So I'm like, wait, this is really healthy with the sauce stuff. Maybe I could go back to the pancakes that he loves and we can also introduce the nutrients that way without the added sugars, right? So we kind of introduced banana powder and then the greens that are in there and the protein. And I thought, this is great between breakfast and dinner. We're good. Like you can eat some bad stuff in between and I don't
It takes a mom, it really does. Let there be a problem and put a mother in front of it and slash it in the most creative and enjoyable way.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful too to take a moment to, I guess, recognize there's a time where we ourselves are like, man, I should probably eat some more vegetables. And, you can do it or you don't do it. But when you're responsible for the growth of a tiny creature that relies on you for all of its nutritional value because they don't understand what they need to grow their bones and their brain and help with all their developmental needs. And when you do become aware of it, my goodness, just as an aunt, I was really feeling nervous and guilty when the only thing I could get in my nephew was yogurt. I'm like, well, it's good, but like they need more than that. There's not enough in this, and this is all you're eating. And to be able to cover breakfast and dinner with the nutritional, like foundational needs that a growing child must have. Man, that must have taken such a sigh of relief off your plate. Also, while building out this business, it wasn't just you worrying about his well being, but you just had so much more at stake. And I love that it was the thing that you were creating was also solving the problem that you had in your own home.
Yeah. And I mean, the challenge too about getting all those nutrients in, right? I know a lot of people think, well, my child's growing, so they must be doing okay. They're getting taller. But there are so many other, I don't want to say issues, but things that can come from malnutrition, right? And having pasta sauce, yes, it's got tomatoes and whatnot, whatever's in the actual pasta is great, but you can't survive on just one thing. There's so many different nutrients that the kids need, and I think seeing them grow is almost deceiving because you're thinking they're getting what they need. But there are so many different behavioral issues that are happening these days and attention issues that are happening. And that all stems from proper nutrition. So the goal again in trying to get them, it's not just, well, they're eating, so they can eat the same thing every day. I mean, that's also where that variety comes from and what
Mhm.
we're trying to do. And, as a mom of a picky eater, I mean, honestly, it's kind of funny. My younger son, he doesn't mind vegetables. Like he'll eat broccoli, but I'm like, you can't just eat broccoli. That's not the
Yeah.
only thing that you can eat, right? You have to
Yeah.
try this fish and you have to try this chicken. And that's where the argument, like I'll sit with him for an hour at the dinner table and say, no, you have to take a bite. You have to try it. We don't say we don't like it until you've tried it multiple times and that type of thing. So I can get him to do that, but you can't survive off one bite of fish,
Mhm.
and so that's where these other products come in. They can fulfill them, they can sustain them and help them grow, while I can also go, well, try that one bite of shrimp, and expand their palates a little bit. As I also think teaching them to appreciate food, especially going back to my heritage, is such a big deal. I want them to be able to go to a nice restaurant and say, oh, I will order this off the menu, that you wouldn't expect them to order one day. So it's a challenge, and it comes from so many different directions. And as a mom, you're not only trying to get them to grow, but get them to have good palates and to be good eaters at a restaurant and all these things, right?
It blows my mind the amount of heavy lifting that it requires to be a parent and keep your child afloat, let alone have them thriving. And parents are doing their absolute very best. And I think the one area we could all use a little help with is having ready-made foods that are not only healthy for you, but taste good and are something that child to adult, we're all enjoying eating and it's good for all of us. And for you to have kind of cracked that nut, I find so fascinating because there's billions of dollars worth of other food companies out there that are really struggling in being able to identify what food is, what ingredients are that are going to be better for you than others, and making the decision and the choice to choose those healthier ingredients over the cheaper on maybe even food level ingredients. So, could you talk a little bit about what your scaling and manufacturing process was like when it came to deciding, no, 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 we're using whole food ingredients and this is what this product is? Because that's the differentiator for anyone not really, if you haven't really taken time to look at your food labels and get to know some of the ready made food products that are on your shelves and in grocery stores, oftentimes there are very few actual food ingredients in what you're eating. So if you wouldn't mind going into that a bit, Kendra, because you do have this expertise now of being on both the formulation and the manufacturing side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the very beginning, I knew this started as a product for my children. And so I knew what I wanted to provide them. And it was a constant looking at another label going, wait, why is there that in there? What even is that? So it's challenging when you're producing it and thinking, well, now I need it to last a long time. So a lot of these things, are preservatives, but there are also natural preservatives out there, like what we use, like a rowan berry extract for something, which is like a rosemary extract. And we also, there's a little lactic acid you can put in things, but these are all natural ingredients that I thought I'm willing to put that into something because that's healthy for a child, or that's okay. So fortunately, when we went into production, or I shouldn't say fortunately, one of the biggest challenges we had when we went into production is that our ingredients are good and they make it harder to produce a shelf stable product. Our marinara sauce, for example, I tried to contact so many different manufacturers for our sauce, and they all said, "Oh no, it can't be shelf stable. Like, you have to pump it full of other things, and you would have to heat treat it with this other process that actually kills everything inside of it, and that's how it can be shelf stable." And I said, like, we can't do that, because then it doesn't have any of the nutrients and the values that we're really trying to accomplish. And so the problem with what we had was, if you know anything about shelf stabilization, like, it has to be at a certain pH level. Well, the high pH is what's good about it. And so, most places just said, we're not going to touch it. And we ended up finding some place that could help us in our manufacturing process and do a heat seal on it, that it wouldn't affect necessarily the pH. The pH is like legal, what it needs to be on a shelf, but we didn't have to dump a whole bunch of things in it. You can look at our marinara sauce. We actually didn't even need citric acid or lactic acid. Like, it's pure as it is, which is so exciting for me. But that took a really long time to produce. And we have a couple products right now that we've been working on for years, like a pesto and an Alfredo. And it's, they're saying, well, the only way to do that is if you do that process that kills everything inside. And I said, well, then that defeats the purpose. So it's
Mhm.
a process of holding out. We also just launched last week, actually, our ragu, which is our meat sauce. And it's just like our marinara, but it has a really clean sausage in it. I think it's just, pork and vinegar and spices, and like super natural, which is awesome. But that was a really difficult process for us too. I created that recipe a couple years ago, and we had to go through the USDA because it's got meat in it, which all of our products go through, like FDA certification, all of that stuff. But when meat is involved, it's USDA. And
Mhm.
that was a really big challenge. And so they had to take a look at our label, and they tore it apart, right? You can't say this, but you can say this. You can't, we had like 0 sugar added and no added sugar. And they said, no, they have to match. Both have to be 0 or whatever. And then, it's not a low calorie food. You have to write that. And I said, okay, we would write that. And then they'd come back and look at it and say, well, no, you have to remove that. I said, but you told me I had to put it on there. So it became such a challenge. We went back and forth probably about 7 to 10 times. And I finally said, you know what? We're not doing meat. Let's try to do an alternative meat. And because I have a lot of friends that are vegetarian, and they were excited about it, but they knew they weren't going to be able to eat it. So I looked into a lot of different companies, and we had gotten some kind of fake meat in, if you will. And I have found one that, okay, it kind of worked, because to cook a sauce with sausage, like, it has to simmer, and there are certain things, that come out of the meat that provide that extra flavor, what changes the sauce. And all of these fake meats didn't have that, but there were a couple that did. So I said, okay, well, what about these? And then I'd look at their labels. I was like, that's terrible. I can't put that in the food. So, I just assumed, well, everybody that's vegetarian out there must be healthier, and the assumptions that you make when you're not a vegetarian. And so I just assumed it would be okay. And when I looked at it, I thought, there's no way. There's nothing real in that. I can't use that. So after going back and forth, I just thought, okay, let's keep trying. And we kept trying with the meat. And finally, 2 years later, we got the whole label approved, which was exciting for us. It was quite the celebration. Yeah, that sauce is now available on our website. It'll be up on Amazon shortly. And then hopefully, we can launch into stores as well. But it's yeah, there's just so many things that I didn't think about going through the process. So
Yeah.
you learn as you go.
I mean, tell us about some of your largest learning curves, because you were a professional golfer, which requires
Yeah.
such different skill sets and attention to detail and focus, which I'm sure made your ability to stick through this process a lot easier and a lot smoother than it would be for others. So I'm sure there's absolutely a connection there of mindset and determination and grit that followed through. But what were some of the actual learning curves because this was brand new for you?
Yeah, I mean, the manufacturing part was definitely a challenge. So I've had several companies in the past where, we were the manufacturing team and we had, kitchens and we were producing products and getting them out there, and they were mainly in like the confectionery space. So this is the first time that I've launched something that had, um, well, scalability is a good word, right? But in order to do that, it had to go outside of my jurisdiction a little bit, and I had to find people that could help us manufacture. And so just calling around and again trying to deal with, well, how do I get that shelf stable, and how do I make a label that is approved by USDA or FDA, and how to source ingredients. There's a whole world of ingredients out there. So that was a bit of a challenge, having to go to different shows, and there are a couple products that we also had that I struggled with. It's like I couldn't get them over the line for shelf life that we wanted, or particular taste. And so we had brought in an R&D team that kind of helped us a little bit. And bless their hearts, they tried and got me to a certain point. And I thought, okay, I can take it back, but still didn't end up doing exactly what I want. So there are a lot of products that we have that are in our own R&D right now that I'm working through and trying to, use different ingredients that are very healthy, different fibers that can produce different flavors. And, I guess it's also one thing that was a learning curve and a challenge is what I like is not what everybody else likes as well. I think when you're making a cookie or a truffle, everybody's like, that's delicious, and so you can produce a product that I think is healthy. For a while, we were using enriched wheat flour because as a mom, I thought, enriched wheat flour, that sounds great, right? There's extra nutrients. And then we got a whole slew of feedback going, well, no, we don't want enriched. We want good unbleached regular flour. So we changed all of our pancake mix to match that. But I think it's also, you talk about grit. Obviously, I had that golfing. I was very determined. I was on a really good routine and I knew what my day was going to be like every day. When we deal with these products, every day is different. What am I working on today? What feedback did we get? What do we need to switch out or change? And that throws me for a loop a little bit because I like to be a little more regimented,
Mhm.
but we do have to deal with different feedback. We can't make everybody happy. Some parents say, no, we like the enriched wheat flour. Well, I can't make pancake mix the same flavor when enriched and when non-enriched, right? So we just have to kind of go, how can we make sure that the kids are eating the best they can, and still provide, maintain our mission.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, at the end of the day, and our company is very, very mission driven, and everything we do has to kind of go back to that. Are we feeding kids better? Because
Mhm.
that's what I want, and making it easier to feed families better. And if it's a challenge because you put it on their plate and they're still saying, no, I don't like that, that did not fulfill my mission, right? They're not going to eat it if it's not good. And so we actually right now we're also in some schools. So we're working with the school districts, because I felt like, well, I could get it on the shelf and then tell a mom, buy this, and then they can make it for their kid, and hopefully they are able to do that at home. But schools, especially in California, they get free meals, they get a free breakfast and a free lunch, and that's part of what they're eating for the day. And so I feel like, well, if I can provide nutrition for them, then I'm helping fulfill that mission and making sure that they're getting the nutrients that they want, because I'm tired of them being so sick, or having the issues with the behavioral and that type of thing. And so hopefully that's, you know we're able to you know kill a whole bunch of, I don't want to say birds with one stone, but kind of, you know what I
No,
mean?
for sure, for sure, and it's beautiful because you're making delicious food here. You're not building like a new type of like rocket that's gonna go out to space and like bring back like the next big snack for like a picky eater, but you are truly changing lives in the simplest of ways, and sometimes big change happens best when it is simple. And I love that school districts felt comfortable enough to bring in what you were making because they can't take risks on a taxpayer's money, and they need to make sure that, what they're bringing in is something that's truly going to be great for every child coming in. So it's, if anything, it's just a testament to what you have created and that your mission is truly out there living right now and being fulfilled by being recognized by these larger entities that are like, yeah, yeah, we do have to do this and you fit the bill. So that's perfect. What does that feel like to be kind of, just filling all these baskets while still maintaining your business? And, it's a lot to get to this place and feel success and continually have that success just be fulfilling and fortifying your mission, which is rare.
Yeah. I mean, it feels awesome, right? But then there are other days where you think, what am I doing? I'll get feedback from one child somewhere, that's like, well, it tastes different. And I'm like, oh, I don't necessarily want it to taste different. I want, but then to go reformulate the recipe where one child might not have liked it, but 20 did. I'm like, okay, I have to make that choice. So, it's still at the end of the day, I think we're growing, but when I get feedback that something didn't make it easy, it always hits a little bit, and I have to think, okay, that's a growing opportunity. And then we keep going, because I think one thing you have to learn, especially as a business owner, is to take constructive criticism, right? And I have basically chosen the hardest audience that you could choose in picky eaters, right? These kids they tell it like it is, like it's, that tastes funny, or this is, I don't like it. Well, what don't you like? I don't know. It's just, I don't like it. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, let's try to get some feedback there. What can I do? As you're like having a conversation with a 5-year old, you know?
Mhm.
So it's been like, I love our mission. We have a great team of people that handle a lot of different things for what we do, because I couldn't do it by myself. And most of us are actually a really cool set of moms that have gone through it themselves and that are busy working moms that, some of them have master's degrees and, all these things. And they also stopped working to raise their kids. And they kind of came back and said, I feel like I have more to give. I'm still raising my kids, but while they're in school, like, I know I can contribute. And somehow or another, we stumbled upon each other. And I think what makes me really excited is that we have this team that all believes in one another, that encourages one another, and that has the same passion for this mission. So when they go out, they're saying, hey, I'm a mom and we like this, and this is what we're doing, and our kids love it, and your kids should too. And it's fun to see it grow that way.
Yeah, and I love that it's growing in just the sheer instance of sharing your story, because I think there are a lot of things that happen in the home behind closed doors that really truly do affect the health of a family, the day-to-day life of a family. And when you've got a picky eater in the household and it's been days since they've had a decent belly full of food and they're cranky and they're upset, and spouses have work and you have things to do and you have grocery shopping, and then grocery shopping becomes an enjoyable task when it used to be your task to just go and be quiet. Now you've really got to think, like, what the heck am I going to get in this kid today, because it's been 3
Yeah.
days and
Yeah.
he can't keep eating yogurt. There has to be something. And like that sharing of the story, I think before, it seems silly now to think like, oh, well, people aren't sharing as much as they were when we have like Instagram at our fingertips, but there really was, kind of before the internet, this community where moms especially had to come together and share what was working for them, because children are different. They are a cornucopia of individuals. And, what one works food wise, if they're picky, they may not like chicken nuggets and this one might like pizza. Like there's no deciphering, but to know that you can get in, for instance, okay, maybe they like pasta or they don't and they like pizza. Both of those require red sauce, which you have created as a base to be used for whatever little plate you can get in front of them. Same thing with the pancakes. Oh, they want to have a pancake? Maybe they'll have a muffin. Like, how can we remix what we're doing here to just get these ingredients into their mouth? And to hear it from another mom, I think it would almost be like, okay, I'll give it a try. I haven't heard of this brand, but I'm literally
Exactly.
at my wit's end. And then they find you and they're like, holy moly, look at what's in this. Everything is edible. I
Yeah.
can pronounce it. My child might be able to spell some of the things on this label, and I can eat it. And I don't feel badly about what I'm giving them because this is basically a vitamin in a bottle. Your pasta sauce is so impressive, but I would love for you to walk us through each of your products and kind of what some of the star ingredients are, just to give parents listening or anyone listening an idea of what exactly you are kind of jam packing into these products with. I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't even recognize that they were in there, so I'm so curious for you to kind of lay out each of them and what's in them.
Yeah. Well, our pasta sauce, which was kind of the star of the show and where we began this whole journey, is really just tomatoes, garlic, some Italian spices, and it's got pureed kidney beans, beets, carrots, spinach. I think that's it, right? Yeah, but all like we just basically, as I was mentioning earlier, kind of packed everything in that we could until the kids were like, "Wait, what is that? That tastes a little funny." So I was like, "Oh, nothing. There's nothing in it. It's fine." And so toned it back. And it's one thing that I was very particular on is that it needed to have flavor because I think there are a lot of pasta sauces out there. Oh, no sugar. I made sure that the sugar really comes from beets and the carrots that are in there. And so I wanted it to maintain my family sauce flavor because I thought, well, if I'm going to put it on the table, I want to be able to eat it too. And that's another thing, people forget about when they've got picky eaters. You're making, oftentimes you lean towards making something different for that child. And then you're making something else for everybody. So you've got two different meals. That's hard. That's a lot of work. So I wanted to make something that when you put it on the table, everybody else could enjoy it too. It wasn't plain and it didn't have so much flavor that that picky eater thought, oh, there's too much in here. I don't want it.
Yeah.
So that's our, that pasta sauce. And same with our new ragu that just came out. It's the same base, but then it has the clean Italian sausage in it. So I'm excited about that. Our pancake mixes, which we've got four right now. We've got our chocolate chip, our home style, our cinnamon churro, and our gluten free. And so, yeah, basically our three main, besides the gluten free, they have that unbleached wheat flour in them. They are sweetened with monk fruit and banana powder. So we're really trying to stick with that, no added sugar in that. And if somebody wants to add syrup, they can, but really the monk fruit and the banana powder create the sweetness. So even my kids who love syrup, or they have always loved syrup, they eat them without syrup, which to me is bonus because, now you're not having to add that extra addition. Though I know a lot of kids that eat it with syrup, so that's cool. And then we have flaxseed pea protein. We use pea protein in our products as they just create a little bit more of a smoother flavor. And I know whey can be kind of hard on some tummies out there. And then we have a vegetable blend that's essentially getting your greens in. Right? So if people say, well, we eat our vegetables already, or my kids like vegetables, it's kind of, to me, it's the same thing as a smoothie. When you make a smoothie, you never just put in milk and protein powder. You're always sticking something else in there, right? Whether it's spinach to the point that no one can taste it, or some fruit and bananas, and just trying to get in everything you can because you can. And that's essentially what we did with this. So our blend, off the top of my head, I wish I could spit it off, but it's, there's papaya, there's mushroom, I believe there's broccoli and all sorts of things in this really kind of proprietary vegetable blend. And it's so potent that it's able to provide 50% of vitamins A, B, C, D, and E, which it's only a few little pancakes that do that. So even my kids end up going through a couple servings, and I'm thinking, all right, you got your vitamins in for the day. So that was a benefit for us. Unfortunately, it's not vegan. It does have milk powder in it and some butter powder, but we had to make that choice. We got a lot of requests about, do you have a vegan product? Are you vegan? Are you gluten free? And gluten free came out earlier this year, which that was a long time coming as well. And we, again, had to make that decision. Do we also make it vegan and hit multiple people? But one of the things we wanted to do was maintain a good flavor. And not that you can't have a flavorful vegan product, but to me, the butter powder is what kind of creates a smooth, kind of creamy product. And so we left that in there along with some of the milk powder. So our gluten-free, which is probably our most popular right now, kind of tells you where society is going as a whole. We used, let's see, I think it was tapioca flour and rice flour, a combination of white and brown rice flour. So it's a pretty clean product as well. well, it is a clean product as well. So that was exciting for us. We have cookies, which some chocolate chip cookies. Those are what have been back and forth in R&D, just because I want to make sure that they have that exact flavor profile that I'm looking for and they don't have any aftertaste. And then our muffins right now are what are going into the school districts. So a lot of the schools needed products that were already pre-made. We had talked to them about pancake mix, and a lot of schools don't have the ability to actually produce the products like on site. And so they needed something that was ready made. So we have gone back and forth with them about different flavor profiles and recipes. And we've been in some schools and gotten some feedback. And so we actually had to add a little bit of sugar to those muffins, which was a challenge for me. I had some sleepless nights about it because one of our values is no added sugar. So you're kind of one of the first to hear that that might be changing a little bit, that we're keeping that sugar content really, really low in comparison to some of the other products that are out there. But that was because we had gotten feedback from kids that they could taste a little bit of the monk fruit on the back end. And one of my conversations with my husband and our team was, listen, at the end of the day, if that is what's preventing us from feeding these children, like, it's okay. I was okay with adding a little bit of sugar to overcome that so that we can get the rest of the nutrients into them. It's really hard. We're talking about the changes in America right now and where food is going and trying to be healthier. The kids at school, if you ask your kids, what did you eat today? And again, like, I give it to the nutrition people at school that are, really trying to work through these recipes and all the requirements that they have, but at the same time trying to get the kids to eat. Some of them will tell you, oh, they gave us powdered donuts today, or we had cookies with cream for breakfast. And I'm thinking, what? So I'm up against some of
Crazy.
that, which is a challenge because we are healthier. And if you
Mhm.
put me right next to a cupcake that's loaded with sugar and butter, you're going to taste the difference. I'm just
Yeah,
going to be,
for sure.
it's a great product. We have like these sprinkle cake muffins that are amazing. And I give them to kids. And they're like, these are so good. And they eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if I were to also then give them a vanilla cupcake, they'd be like, oh, well, I kind of like that. So what do you do?
I love so much that you do state that you have kind of this different taste because you're lacking some of the more conventional ingredients that, children have come to get used to. So, in saying that, because I think if you have a picky eater, sometimes they're exposed to things that are not really something you want to bring into your home. So maybe it's a snack or
Mm-hmm.
something they came across at school and they're like, "Well, I'll eat that." And you're like, "Well, I'm sorry, but we don't have Oreos in this house, or we don't eat Cheetos in this house," or something along those lines. So, if there's a parent that is looking to kind of bridge the gap in this phase of getting a picky eater to eat something other than maybe the unhealthier items that taste a little bit more enticing to them, what would be some tips or tricks that you have kind of come across while creating these different recipes and these different products? And do you maybe have an anecdote of how to help get the first bite into the picky eater?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? And I'm sure there are moms out there that have some great tips too. I would say one of the things that we do is I make sure that that's their first bite, right? So that they're not then comparing it to something else that's out there. Like I mentioned, you taste our muffins and then a cupcake. There's a little bit of a difference, right? So I always make sure that that's the first thing. We have a minimum of a 3-bite rule in our house. So you have to try it 3 times. We also make sure, that things on the plate are finished before you can have those snacks, which I'm sure is a common rule for a lot of people. We actually hide our snacks too, because for my picky eater, he'll go through and fill up on those things without us knowing because he can get to them in different areas of the house. And so he'll load up on that. And then when actual dinner comes, doesn't want to eat the nutritious stuff that he's supposed to be getting. So we do that. I do know as well that if some people have said their kids are used to like a different product or a different pasta sauce, some people will mix the two together and then slowly get them to appreciate those flavors. If it's something that's different, as I mentioned, we really strive and are proud of the fact that most of our products are just really easy. The kids love them, all is good. But
Mhm.
I have talked to kids that are actually in therapy for food aversions, right? And some won't eat anything red, or some really struggle with a certain texture. And I appreciate that. I get that. So I think having to sort through that is important. Also, some of the tips that those parents have given me are the kids actually providing, a number. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give this food and why? And what do you give that food? And what are the reasons for it? Can you describe a flavor that you're experiencing? Can you do that? Another thing in our house too is I make the kids make their food. So we will get them to, we'll make the pasta and then they'll make the pizza and they actually put the sauce on the pizza. And same with the pancakes. That my 10-year-old now, he can make his own pancakes. And there's so many different things that you can do with them too. So our
Mhm.
pancake mix, for example, you can make muffins, and I love the muffins that we make with those. So the kids will do that, and then we have them on the counter. And because they're so healthy, I'm like, great, eat all the muffins you want. That's okay, right? And they just load up on that. So I think trying to find those healthy snacks that fill them up so that they don't want the other crap food, that we would call it, is your
Mhm.
best bet. It's always going to be hard to overcome the fun look of Cheetos or, you know, Takis or whatever are products out there that you just cringe when you think, oh, please don't eat that,
Yeah.
or, but I also think that parents are a big influence on what their kids are eating. So sometimes you can look at parents' style and what they eat, and they don't like fish. Well, their kids probably aren't going to like fish, because they didn't encourage them to have that at home. And show them that, hey, we have all the different varieties on our plate. We do eat broccoli, and this is what you're getting. Have the kids be able to pick out what vegetable that they want for your veggie at dinner. We always, when we make food, we make sure that we have that spread. You've got your vegetable, you have your starch or your carb, and then that solid piece of meat, or for a vegetarian, maybe it's, a salad or something like that. But I want to make sure that the kids get a little bit of that and they're tasting that variety of foods. And whether or not they eat that whole part of their meal, I feel like it's a win if we get those 3 bites in. So
For
those are my
sure.
tips.
I love them. And you know what? The mixing of slowly over time, if you've got a picky eater on that level, that's a great tip because I have come across children with that level of palate and they're like, nope,
Hmm.
I don't like it. Nope, nope, nope. And then you're like,
Yep.
crap, we're so close.
Yeah.
Like that first bite is a little too much where they're like, oh, no, I can't do it. And that is such a beautiful tip to mix slowly over time and kind of help them to acclimate at a more, maybe developmentally correct speed for what they're wanting to kind of take in that moment. But such great
Yeah,
tips.
especially if they are at that extreme level where they only like this brand of something. A lot of kids, and whether it's mental or not, you put it in the different box. I think parents used to do that with cereal, right? They stuck it in the regular Fruit Loops box or whatever it was. But it's a challenge. And I know my son being picky, everything that we make has to go through him. So my older son, it's kind of funny because he's got a phenomenal palate and will say, okay, I can taste this. I can taste this. I like this, mom. Or he'll say, this isn't your best. Maybe you can add more of this. And that's my 10-year-old. My younger one, 7, he will look at something and say, it looks funny. It smells funny from here. Don't even bring it over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, okay, because it has to pass through him. Because again, my goal is to make it easy. And I know as a mom, when you make something and you go to hand it and they look at it and they're like, nope, your heart sinks like, oh my gosh, now I got to go
Yeah.
back to the drawing board, or sit here and really encourage. I'm do sit and make them eat it. I know that there are some people out there that say, don't do that. And, it should be an enjoyable experience. And I think, well, it worked with my older one because I think all kids will go through a picky phase. They just do. And you get to that point as a mom where you're like, do I give in? Because he's such a good eater regularly. Do I give in and just give him the chicken nuggets and the pizza? Or do I fight through it? And I
Mhm.
absolutely think you have to fight through that, because then within the next year or two, they go back to being a good eater if you don't let them have all that, stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about just the convenience of what you've done, and convenience certainly isn't new within the food industry, but the fact that you have made nutritionally sound products that will not only be quick and easy for a parent to grab, but they can know deep in their hearts, like, okay, they're getting all the nutrition they need today. And I am too. I'm aging, I'm growing in my own way.
Hmm.
And, to get just those boxes ticked off just by picking up a jar of marinara sauce seems like a tall sell. But in reality, our body is made up of the things we put in it day after day after day. And if you make this marinara sauce a staple, if you make the pancake mix a staple in your home, not only, as Kendra said, are you guaranteeing that you're getting okay, no, breakfast was great. I know that dinner was great, but you're just making life a little easier for you as well. You know, you don't and may not have the time right now to make a delicious nutritional marinara sauce from scratch or take the time to research the perfect ratios for making a jam-packed protein pancake. There's just so much heavy lifting that Kendra has done for you guys here with Hidden Foods. And it's, if you know, you know, okay? And if you're there in your life right now where you're like, thank God that this podcast came across my page because my son just threw the last of the spaghetti we had across the room and I just don't know what to do anymore. Take a look at the Hidden Foods website. All of the links are going to be in the show notes. Check out the Instagram. Please run to either their website or Amazon, grab some mixes, give it a try with your kids. And I love the idea of letting them make it as well, involving them in the process, maybe telling them about some of the great things that were in it after they've eaten it, you know, and kind of have there be that positive association of like, I've never had that ingredient before. Like broccoli, I wouldn't think about that being in a pancake. Like there's just so many ways that you can also use Hidden Foods as a tool for learning, and it doesn't always have to be to cater to that pickier eater because I really want to stress that there aren't many people out there that are worried about our nutritional foundation for children, and you are one in a million right now out on the food market because most food companies are not very concerned about what they're putting into food that is mainly consumed by children. And I'm so thankful for people like you that decided to go all in
Thank
and
you.
not only help your children with their nutrition, but help everyone else's children with their nutrition. And it just really goes to show how much this mission means to you because you didn't want to save all of this goodness for your children. You wanted to help others. And I think it's a true testament to what Hidden Foods Co. is and the person that you are to have brought it to life. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. That's very kind. Thank you, Sarah.
I have one final question for all of my guests, and it's this. Kendra, how do you make your life rich?
I practice a lot of appreciation. And so I think every day I make sure I go through a whole list. I'm also a woman of faith. And so I make sure I'm very thankful for so much in my life and so many aspects from healthy kids to, um, an inspirational husband to a roof over my head and clothes that I can wash and those types of things. And I think there's a really richness in being happy with what you have, but still striving, and wanting to work hard and having a mission and a goal and things that you can do to help others. But I know I'm very blessed. So I appreciate that.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that so much. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you for Hidden Foods. And guys, please go click all the links in the show notes. Absolutely follow their Instagram. I love your Instagram. It's beautiful. You have great
Thank you.
content coming out. And everyone, please share in the comments what your first recipe was like, whether it was making a pancake or if you used pasta sauce for pasta dinner, maybe on Friday night or a little pizza pie on Friday night. Let us know in the show notes. And thank you so much for tuning in. And Kendra, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. You too.
Okie dokie.